This is A New Angle, a show about cool people doing awesome things in and around Montana. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today I am speaking with Alex Sobin, director of spectrUM. Since 2008, spectrUM has been dedicated to igniting an interest in science for kids throughout Montana.
Most museums will bring people to them. They don't ever go to the people. And so the fact that we're able to do that about 10 times a year is amazing, but it's not enough.
spectrUM is housed in the Missoula Public Library and supported by a wide variety of grants and other sources. Alex, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Justin.
So tell us, where did you grow up and what did your parents do?
I grew up kind of all over. My dad worked for an oil exploration company, and so every 2 to 3 years we bopped around the country. I spent most of my childhood between Houston, Texas, and Anchorage, Alaska. I came to Montana because it was a good stand-in for Alaska without being a university that was 5 minutes from my parents' house or negative 30 degrees most of the year.
And did you study education here?
I did, but not until my graduate degree.
Okay.
So I actually have a bachelor's in biology. I intended to go on and become a doctor, and through a series of job shadows, realized that wasn't really the course for me, but I really loved the content. And so I graduated, I rode my bike across the country because I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And then I fell into a series of nonprofit administration jobs, the last of which was running the Montana World Affairs Council, where we did programming for students. And that was my favorite part of the job. So I realized that education was probably the thing I should look at.
So you dropped in there a few moments ago, the ride across the country. Just take a beat to tell us about that. What inspired it and what did you learn in the experience?
Yeah, so while I was in undergrad, I am a bit of a dabbler. So I saw this nonprofit administration course and was like, that sounds interesting. And realized by that point, I'd been living in Missoula for 4 years, that nonprofits were a massive part of the industry in this community.
They are.
And as part of that, I had to do an internship with a local nonprofit. And so I got placed with Habitat for Humanity, which might not seem like it's going in the direction of bike travel, but I promise it is.
We'll get there.
So while I was working with them, there was a group of young people that came through called Bike and Build. And their whole goal was to ride their bikes across the country to raise money for affordable housing. And they would stop at like 7 to 10 different affordable housing nonprofits and do build days throughout the course of the summer that they were riding. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And yeah, I was 22 and didn't have a job and was pretty aimless with my career prospects. And my boss at Habitat was like, you should do that. And so I signed up and raised $6,500, and they sent us a free bike because a lot of us had never biked before. And rode my bike across the country. And
just went for it.
Just went for it. I mean, it was with a group, so it felt comfortable. I had a little safety net of other humans who were doing the same thing. And they, were all really passionate people who were interested in going into nonprofit administration for the most part.
And that led to Montana World Affairs Council and then the hook into education. What did you teach?
Yeah, I spent 7 years teaching high school science at Sentinel High School locally. While I was getting my education degree, I was also working. And in doing that, I got a position actually with spectrUM Discovery Area.
Oh, so you worked as a grad student at spectrUM.
I did. And so my role there was actually mobile science educator.
Right.
And so that was my first entry into what informal science education could look like.
Well, let's just go there right away. spectrUM Discovery, what is it? How did it come to be?
For sure. So spectrUM Discovery Area was actually founded as part of a National Science Foundation grant, which is really cool. So back in 2007, there was a professor in chemistry here, Chuck Thomas, and he was really passionate about science outreach. And so he decided that he wanted to apply for what's called a SEPA, Science Education Partnership Award.
Okay.
And as part of that, he formed this thing that he called the Super Science Squad. And their whole goal was to go out into the community and do crazy science demonstrations and get kids excited about doing science. And so that kind of transformed over the years into a location on campus and then 2 different brick and mortar locations in downtown Missoula. And now we're in the public library and have been since it opened in its new space in 2021.
I mean, that seemed to be such a crux move for spectrUM, to be wrapped into the construction of this amazing new facility in Missoula. We had Slavin Lee, the director of the library, on several months ago. Talk about that new home that spectrUM has, relatively new home.
For sure. So back in, I think it was like 2017, 2018, spectrUM's previous director, Holly Truitt, was in conversation with Honore Bray, who was the director of the library at that time. And they were talking about how they had heard that in Scandinavian countries, the libraries weren't just libraries. They were these big community spaces with a multitude of organizations that came together, did collaborative programming, and really served the community's needs. And over a course of multiple months, they got it in their heads that when the library bond went through, this is what they really wanted to see. And so spectrUM was really involved in that project from the beginning. And they did do some, outreach trips to Sweden and Norway to learn more about this model and meet with the people who were doing it. And then it really just grew from there. And now there are 5 different nonprofit organizations that are all rolled into the same space. So it's us, Missoula Media Resource, or MCAT, and then the library, obviously, the UM Living Lab, and Families First, which is a parenting engagement nonprofit. And so we all work together very frequently to put on programming. Sometimes it's just 2 partners working together. Sometimes it's all 5. But we're really committed to being kind of a third space for the community to come and spend their time.
Now let's talk about the space itself and the programming. I'm no expert on museums, but this just doesn't feel like a museum. It feels like a place where you go and do stuff.
Yeah. So we are really committed to being kind of a new version of a science museum. So if you walk into our space, we're open 36 hours a week, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. And we always have people in that space who are, their whole job is engaging with kids and their caregivers. So if you come to what we call the Discovery Bench, we'll always have an activity going. They follow themes each week. So every activity we do all week long will be around that general science theme. And then all of the exhibits are meant to be played with and touched. And so we really want to encourage kids to play in order to learn. So it's a lot more memorable if you engage with something yourself than if you're just told it. And we really adhere to that model.
What are some of the greatest hits? Like what exhibit do you think gets the most traffic or is the most interesting, or maybe which is your personal favorite, or all of the above?
Sure. Yeah. So we are really careful to swap out our exhibits every 6 months so that we keep it nice and fresh, especially for the people who come day after day. Since we're free, we have the same kiddos that we see on a very, very regular basis, which is awesome. But I think some of the biggest hits over the years really, our bison has been one of them. So we had a grant through the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which ended 2 years ago, and that was called Transforming Spaces. And so as part of that, we worked with a big advisory group from a number of different tribes around the state to bring more indigenous knowledge into the science content in our space.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we were able to get through that was a taxidermy bison. And half of it was a traditional taxidermy, the other half was a skeleton. And kids were encouraged to touch this bison. And his name was Ernie, because Ernie had a counterpart, which was the other half of his hide and the other half of his skeleton, named Bert.
Okay, nice.
And so I think Bert right now is in China, but Ernie lives at the bison range now. And we still have people come in looking for Ernie, which is really cool. So we can direct them to our partners at the bison range and just be like, go check him out there and go see the live bison.
And how about some of the most crazy sort of doing type of exhibits? I'm prompting this question thinking of my childhood in New England. The Museum of Science in Boston was a place that my elementary school would take us frequently. And I just remember so vividly the bike to light a light bulb exhibit.
That one's always a hit.
It was just, everybody wanted to do that. They wanted to see how bright they could make the bulb. It was just such a salient memory for so many in our school who went to visit that facility.
Yeah, so we have a new exhibit that we're building slowly, piece by piece, and it's called GUTS, which stands for Getting Under Technology's Skin.
Okay. That's
And
a good acronym.
it is.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so our GUTS exhibit, the goal of it is to take some vintage technology and basically remove the exterior so kids can get comfortable with what goes on under the surface.
Vintage. I have to ask, what does vintage mean now? I'm going to start feeling old when you answer
No,
this,
actually,
I'm sure.
well, I hope not. So the first piece that's finished and out on the floor for people to engage with is an electromechanical pinball machine from the 70s.
Okay. There's a lot of mechanism in that somebody could understand.
For sure. And the fact that it's electromechanical really helps with understandings of circuits.
Yeah.
So by taking the exterior off and replacing it with plexiglass, kids can see into it and they can see its inner workings.
Yes.
And you can actually watch sparks form between the metal components in the pinball machine as someone plays the machine.
Yeah.
So one way we engage with the kids is they're only allowed to get one token from us per day. And the way that they earn their token is by answering a science trivia question.
I love this.
Yeah, they come up, they ask our educators, can I have a question? And we ask, what age are you in? What kind of science do you like best? And then we tailor the question to that. And then they can go and play the pinball machine. And while they're playing, their friend or their sibling can watch what's going on inside and really see like those solenoids firing and the different connections being made. And so that's just one piece of this exhibit that we're working on building out. It'll eventually be about 6 different exhibit components, but really looking at these kind of through lines in technology that we see, especially when you're not just looking at a computer chip, but you're looking at kind of older technology, which takes up more space and is therefore a little easier to understand. So yeah, switches, solenoids, levers, cams, those kinds of things that just recur over and over.
And I love the social piece as you describe it. I mean, some of my favorite memories of engaging with spectrUM have been birthday parties and camps that my children went to, and you get to see how different kids grapple or interact with the exhibit or the activity in different ways and learn from each other, and sort of, they can pick up on cues from other kids or see that somebody else is struggling and maybe help, or vice versa. It's just, to me, that social dynamics are so well thought through at spectrUM.
One of the things we really like to focus on is intergenerational learning. Yes. So really kind of bringing the parents into the learning with their children, both as an explainer and then also as just someone who's kind of learning alongside, which is really cool.
And there's a lot of stuff you do and your colleagues do to bring the lessons that occur in the building out and share it with the rest of Montana. Talk about some of the things you do to serve the statewide audience.
Yeah, so if you live in Missoula, the most visible part of our brand is our museum, but that's only about 10% of our annual budget. So most of what we do is actually outreach. So if you find yourself in Western Montana, all summer long we do outreach programs to the Bitterroot, to Mineral County, and to the Flathead. Mm-hmm. And so that's weekly all summer as part of our Science Bites and our Summer of Science, which are 2 different programs because they're funded by 2 different sources, but really they're very similar. So we pop up at different public venues like libraries or community museums or historical societies, and we bring some of those hands-on activities to engage kids. So that happens all summer. Usually it's about 25 different outreach programs that we do throughout the course of June to August. And then during the school year, we do what's called Science on Wheels, which is how I got my start, so it's my favorite. And so Science on Wheels, we take an exhibit. We have 2 that are traveling right now, and we load it into a U-Haul truck. So it's purpose-built to be travelable. Yeah. And our educators who specialize in outreach, they drive across the state, sometimes all the way across the state, like Sydney, Montana. And they'll set up in a gym or a cafeteria at the school, or if the community's really small, sometimes in like a community center. And they do in-school field trips. So the kids from that community or surrounding communities can come with their class. They get a hands-on activity that we guide, and then they also have access to just exploring the exhibit like you would in the museum. And then we always have family science night that we do where the kids get to bring their caregivers and their younger or older siblings who haven't seen it and really just explain what they learned. And that's really the coolest part is seeing them serve as teachers for their families.
Do you have a sense for how many folks you reach on annual basis or
Sure.
some metrics like that?
Yeah, so across all of our platforms, we see over 200,000 people a year.
Wow, that's great.
About 150,000 of that's in our museum, and the other 50,000 is through outreach. In the state of Montana, elementary schools are not required to teach science. And so for some of the communities that we go visit, this is the only science exposure they have all year.
We'll be back to my conversation with Alex Sobin after this short break. A New Angle is proudly presented by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. This show does not happen without these pillars of our community, and I'm so grateful for their support and encouragement. And speaking of support, have you checked out our new website yet? anewanglepodcast.com. There you can support our show directly with a variety of subscription options. Subscribers get access to bonus episodes, additional segments, writings, and other benefits. So check it out at anewanglepodcast.com.
Hey, this is Ryan Tutel
and Coulter Nuanez from ESPN Missoula.
and you're listening to A New Angle.
Welcome back to A New Angle. I'm speaking with Alex Sobin about what spectrUM Discovery Area does to advance science education across Montana. So that's an interesting realization about, the status of science education in Montana. Take the example of spectrUM. Like, here's a mechanism that's specifically invested in driving an interest in STEM fields for students. I feel like that's been, at least here at the University of Montana and other colleges and universities, that's been a super salient topic. Like, how do we drive more science education? How do we get more STEM fields? Yet I think we're also in a moment in the world where some lessons from the humanities maybe need to be drawn upon. How do you think about that in your work, balancing the pure science piece of education with some of the more humanistic aspects of helping these young people gain a foothold in the world?
I actually got a minor in English literature when I came to UM. So I've always kind of had a foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm a certified English teacher too. And that was always a really interesting experience in grad school, where I would kind of bounce back and forth across campus. It was wild to feel the way classmates kind of siloed themselves almost. Not to speak disparagingly about them, but it was definitely like, oh, those people over there doing that thing that we don't understand.
I get that. I get put in a box as a business professor
Sure.
often in meetings around campus. To be fair, I think I do that to others as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just a natural part of the human instinct in a lot of ways.
It's like categorizing people and putting labels. But if you think about, where science came from, is the original scientists were all philosophers. And so they had this really holistic view of the world, and some of it was off the wall if you read science history. It's pretty wild. But they were looking for a way to understand everything. And so that's why they went out and started making scientific discoveries. And so I think, a philosophy degree or, interest in philosophy or literature or any of the humanities really just helps to advance your critical thinking skills, your understanding of the world. And that's something we do a lot at spectrUM. We are leaning heavy into what's called STEAM as opposed to STEM. So that's the A, the art in science. So if you actually talk to a lot of scientists, a lot of them are artists too.
It is such a creative pursuit, science, and I think that often gets lost in how it is represented to young people.
Yeah, I think we do young people a bit of a disservice with the way we teach science. Is there's a focus on memorize these facts, or I was a biology teacher. I taught pre-healthcare courses, and a lot of it was you need to know the name of this, and you need to just make flashcards and memorize. But really, at its heart, science is about asking questions and being creative and thoughtful and really, stepping outside the box. And I think we overemphasize the rote memorization piece to the detriment of the creativity sometimes, which is what's really nice about working in informal science ed, is that our whole goal is just engaging people in the inquiry process and getting them excited. And so I always tell my educators, I'm less concerned that kid will walk away with some science vocabulary as them walking away feeling like science is accessible to them.
We can't help but think of the way you're funded. You mentioned the source code of spectrUM as a National Science Foundation award, and the NSF has gone through ups and downs. It's been in the news this year in particular. But before we get to that, what are some of the other funding sources?
We definitely rely on corporate sponsors, which has been amazing. We have a very philanthropic corporate landscape in Missoula. And then private donations for sure. We do have a big fundraiser coming up on October 24th that we're excited about. It's our big night at the museum masquerade ball.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so this is something, we've done our big night for the last 12 years, and this year we're hosting it in the museum as part of a big exhibit launch. So we'll have 2 brand new exhibits that we're showing off.
Very good.
We're going to have live music, open bar for all of those who imbibe, and some delicious appetizers to snack on. And it'll just be a really fun opportunity to come and see the museum after hours and learn more about what we do. And we would invite everyone to buy your tickets on GrizzTix.
In addition to the event and private philanthropy, you are funded by a variety of grant sources?
We are, yeah. So we have been leaning pretty heavily on a number of private foundations for years.
Okay.
The chief amongst them is the Jane S. Heeman Foundation. And so those guys are based in the Bitterroot. They fund all of our Bitterroot and Mineral County programming. And they're just truly amazing champions of what we do at spectrUM. And then we also work with the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation,
Sure.
which obviously they are super passionate about children's education,
Mm-hmm.
and they have been great partners. Gianforte Family Foundation, Bill and Rosemary Gallagher Foundation. Pretty much, if you know a local humanitarian foundation, we love them, and they come out to support us, which is a really great place to be.
Yeah, there was reporting earlier in the year that a number of the grant programs, the federal grant programs that you rely on for your funding, I think the number I saw was something akin to $250,000 was at risk for
Yeah.
spectrUM. First, just as a director of an institution that relies on that type of funding, that's a significant line item.
Yes.
Hard to replace. Talk about that moment for you as a leader. How do you kind of
Yeah.
bring your attention to that challenge?
We have an annual operating budget of about $1.2 million.
Okay.
So $250,000
Yes.
of that is a substantial amount. And the grants you're speaking about, we did lose 2, both from the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which was a huge funder of obviously libraries and museums for years and had been really funding spectrUM for about 15 years of our past.
And is that federal money?
Yeah, so it's appropriations, congressional appropriations that funded that. And that whole institute is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So we don't expect to see that money again, which is disappointing because both of those were multi-year grants. And when you get a multi-year grant, you just kind of plan to see it go
Sure.
through the end of its grant period.
Yeah. And so how quickly did it, as a leader of the institution, how quickly did you arrive at that conclusion that this money's gone, it's not coming back? Or did it take a while for the reality to set in?
I think as the director, sometimes you have to plan for the catastrophes. And so the second we got notice that they were gone as far as we were concerned with our budget. And we did have to make some cuts to our programming in order to kind of absorb that really quick shock to the system.
Yeah.
While we were able to tee up some new funding. The Heeman Foundation came through with some support specifically for our museum, which was instrumental to kind of keeping the doors open. And that was short-term, amazing, ability to step up. In the long term, we had 2 different federal grants that we applied for over a year and a half ago that had kind of been sitting in the queue. The one was through National Institutes of Health, and one was through NASA. 2 weeks ago now, we got notice of both on the same day that they were coming through. So that was a huge windfall for us, and we're extremely excited about that.
How do you navigate that scenario as a leader? You've got this, I don't want to suggest it's a windfall, but in the moment it might feel like a windfall because it's been hanging out there for a while. So you've got the money, or the money's been promised, yet the mechanism is a little unsatisfying it's hard to inform future decision-making based on this outcome.
Right. And the thing to keep in mind about any federal grants is they are for a specific purpose. So The National Institutes of Health grant helps to fund a really cool collaboration between spectrUM and the neuroscience department and the psychology department at UM.
Okay.
So we're calling it the Changing Brain, and it's all about neuroplasticity, so how your brain can change in positive and negative ways throughout your life. And what this funds is the creation of kind of a high school student cohort that will serve as outreach educators for younger children about, brain health and safety.
Yeah.
And so that's a really cool project, but it doesn't fund our general line.
Sure.
And then the NASA grant is it was born out of a project that our associate director, Nick Wethington, had percolating in the back of his mind for a long time, which is to distribute checkout telescopes to every single library in the state.
Oh, cool.
So over the next 2 years, every public and tribal college library in the entire state of Montana will get a telescope that they can check out, just like a book, to anyone who comes in the door, which is really cool.
Fantastic. So you've got a big hole to fill when it comes to basic general discretionary funding.
Yeah, we operate in a place where we're pretty flexible and we're pretty creative. But yeah, it's always easier when there's a little bit more general funding.
What can folks do to help support you?
Yeah, come to spectrUM. Come check it out. I feel like we do a really good job of getting out into the community, but I'd love to see new people come and visit us. There's definitely the perception that if you don't have a tiny child, you're not invited. And that's not the case. We welcome people of all ages to come and be inquisitive and engage with the science. And then just, tell your friends, sign up for summer camps for your kiddos, and come visit us at some of these outreach events. We just really want to get the word out that we're here, we're part of UM, we're in the community locally and across the state.
If you could wave your magic wand and create any program at spectrUM with no budgetary constraints, what would you do?
Really, I would just be better about doing what we're already doing. I think the Science on Wheels program feels normal for us because we've been doing it since the start. Mm-hmm. But it is very abnormal for the museum field. Most museums will bring people to them. They don't ever go to the people.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we're able to do that about 10 times a year is amazing, but it's not enough. I would love to triple the size of that program and have a huge team of outreach educators that we could send out simultaneously to different parts of the state. Right now, if Box Elder books us for a week, we can't also go to Circle, Montana. And so just really doing a better job of reaching all the corners of this really rural state because there is such an unmet need.
I love that. You were teed up there to send, I would send every kid into space. Or do
that would be cool too.
Right, but like do some dramatic gesture, whereas your answer, you want to make impact for more people. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we've been to 83 different communities across the state since we opened in 2007. And I'd like to go everywhere. If you look at the map of our impact, it really follows the highways, as you could imagine.
Makes sense.
But there are whole swaths of the state that we just haven't gotten to. And I think that's something that we really are working hard on tackling.
Where do you want to send them online to find out more about what you and your colleagues do?
Yeah, we're umt.edu/spectrUM, SPECTRUM. So come visit us and check it out.
Very good. Alex, thank you for telling us all about it.
Thanks so much, Justin.
Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from UM alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsors are First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Keely Larson is our producer. Libby Riddle is our production assistant. VTO, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music, and Jeff Meese is our master of all things sound. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.